Well, hello everyone. Here to show you the Gradebook professional coloring activity right here. As you see right here is I went and drew some examples right here. We have right here as a teacher and then along with some students and basically that with these with these sketches right here that you have right here as a teacher and along right here is an example right here of me and along with two other students. And knowing that for like most time with most professionals though is that thinking about that for whenever we're in class that just thinking about after about maybe the first or second week of class that a lot of times that they like say assign assignments and then do like a for introduction as well as that they give you about maybe 2 or 3 days to complete an assignment. And a lot of times, though, that knowing about way I think about what I say with professionals is like for like that whenever we go to school is like for like I mentioned before is that for what the types of requirements that what they call for professional work. And if like most professional work is that if it's related to work that's never been seen before, maybe by somebody else, or if it's something that is basically considered to where you had to use a certain the right to certain tools, or if it's the right to accessories, or if it's anything to do with how it was worked and done, that type of stuff. So that knowing about, I'm like, yeah, that if we were thinking about that, the type of sketches to where that if I were to be working these like you have right here is that sketches done on paper, but then if I were to work them like if I were to actually scan them and then convert them to like to a digital document, it is onto a program, and then add a few effects, special effects, or if it's going to be like gradients or something like that any other types of work, and just thinking about for what we call necessarily professional. But with this activity right here, is I'll go ahead and mention right here is that for like say professional work though, that for any student that be taking any classes and thinking about that you've done something so many times to where just knowing about really is it really considered professional or not. It's like that you done it quite so many times to where I guess you say that if it's all about maybe getting used to it. But on your hand, that for like the grade book though, is I went ahead and put together like right here is like kind of like a list right here is like you got maybe partial or something, but basically that for like the grade book, that if we would be looking in the grade book and then just seeing a number of things that I'm sure I don't know if everybody would have a whole lot of time to read everything, but then on your hand that a few things that more likely to read about. One of those could be it's like how well maybe the attendance, about if you come to school, come to class every day and then do your work and bring the supplies that you need, etc., etc. And one of those could also another one of them could be it's like for how well that the work was performed in class. So if any students was like that they assign you a seat, you sit down, you would sit down, and then they want you to read a book, you would read a book, and then if they want you to write a paper or two, you would write a paper or two. But then in the grade book that it may mention about that that one or two things that they asked you to do during that week was missing, and let's just say that with the students that you were supposed to respond to about maybe 2 or 3 of the classmates, and then as well as for like communication and knowing you were supposed to get in groups or something like that. I would do right here as an example. I'm like I used a pen for this these artworks right here, so I'm like anybody like wondering that can't be erased or nothing, but compared to the sketches right up above here. But anyway, but you see right here is I went and do right here as an example right here of the teacher, and let's just say on average that I'm like this was right here. I'm like anybody said how well do you get along with with the ladies, and how well you get along with maybe the gentlemen teachers, and as well as other. Say if it's going to be professors, faculty members, or if it's going to be the administrators or somebody like that. But on the other hand, that it could be like maybe if it's going to be maybe if it's tutors or if it's going to be anything, such as a anything such as it's like for any anything related to like for agents or something like that. But anyway, knowing about anybody that you're going to be talking to, such as an agent or something like that for so it's going to be how well you get along with it. But anyway, just thinking about how right here is like in the classroom right here. I would hand you right here as an example right here of a classroom, and just like students that they come to class and then they do their work. You have right here is what more likely what the classroom would more likely look like. You have right here some students. But just thinking about that, that after about maybe 1 or 2 weeks of class, and then it's like, well, that for like if you got everything turned in, and then right down below, you would have access to, like if you had access to the gradebook, that they would say that you have right here is the plus and then the minus. The minus would more like see, well, if the teacher received it, and then it would show right there a lot of times if it was received, and then the plus will be is like, yep, you turned it in, it was graded, and then it would be like, say, a comment to your line, right? Comment, it would more likely be more likely be on the side here. But then if you would have actually, like online, if you click on, then it will be like a few messages, takes you to another page to where there will be a few comments right there, which I'm sure some students would more likely have time to look at that, like they like between that, like that they say that, well, you didn't read the study guide, that there was a study guide that they gave you to study for about what that they were mentioning about from week 1, week 2, that they give you a study guide, and with the study guide that they may say that some students that may say it's up to 400 words or so long, and it's like if it's too small to read, or just you just don't understand it, etc., etc. That just knowing about that, any students who are going to be in class, and just thinking about that the purpose about attending school, that it's like that they give you a study guide, which I know I don't I know a lot of us get busy too a lot of times, but then on the other hand, it's like after you read it, and then it just seems like that well, what do you call it whenever that if you turn in your classwork, but then now the teacher or so they want to see more work, they want to see more work, but then we all know about the time is also ticking to where that there's only about maybe 4 or 3 days left of class, and then it's like maybe that a student or two that wants to see more work, and sometimes it may not be promised that you'll be able to share with them all your work, and as well as that there was an assignment. There was one part of the assignment which I'm sure maybe not every school, but most schools would more likely say, maybe a few schools would more likely say it to her, that if they especially around finals, that if there is an assignment that is due, or that there was an assignment that they were talking about, but then they say that that actually we're not going to be doing that assignment, we're not going to have enough time. So it's like I think a couple of times before, those couple of years ago, I can remember the teacher would announce an assignment, but then after about maybe a week or two, that you ask about it, like, well, we're not going to worry about it because we're not going to have enough time. It's that there was another assignment that they were going to do, but then according to what they see from that they may say that, I'm like, according to their schedule, if there was meetings or something like that somebody had to go to, then more likely that it's like they cannot arrange it to where that to where that they can have enough time to degrade everything, and as well as work the assignment, and whichever assignment that was due, that it's like, well, we're not going to have enough time for that. So it seems like a number of things that are managed. A lot of the work that we may, I guess there's a big difference between what we expect and what needs to be done. Of course, it's like what needs to be done. It's like and go by the requirements, and maybe something to give the teachers an idea for to get to know a little bit more about the students. So a lot of times that there are some challenges to where almost anybody who's going to school or maybe on a job will likely ask the same questions to where you were mentioning about an assignment or something like that, but then nobody bothered to take time to look at it, and then they kept saying that yeah, ran out of time, but it's almost like you had to request time. Hey, whenever you have time, after the meeting, maybe after school, would you please look at this paper or something? So in a lot of ways, it just seems like the more work, maybe the more work the better, huh? But then on your hand too for what's measured in the grade book, to where that for anything that you do read on the grade book, which I'm sure that any students that may wonder that really that anything that's on the grade book that after class is over, then what does that usually mean? Is it a lot of that stuff erased? Is it all cleared off the file, cleared off record, or something like that? And I'm thinking that no, it's not, because that there may be a few things after class is over, that there may be a few things that more likely that is reset, that such as that I know that for finals, that I know a couple of times that if there was a test or two that somebody was supposed to take, and let's just say that there was some issues that went on, if it's an online course, or if it's related to could not make arrangements just to take the test or something like that. So in a lot of ways, that a lot of things that they say that you had to do this, you had to take the test, or et cetera, et cetera. You had to take the test, and then after about maybe 2 or 3 days, that sometimes that they may say that oh no, you can, don't worry about it, just be here for just be here for that essay or something like that, or the assignment, just turn it in, and then you'll be done, or say etc., or something like that. So besides the word for etc., etc., that if there is any work that you were told that maybe at the beginning, but then after you are willing to work that or something, and then that more likely to say that our chances are that more likely the school or the teacher or whoever will be able to work it out with you, to where that if you turn in an assignment but then there's another one due, don't worry about it, because when we decide something else came up, so we're not even going to bother to grade those, and if anything we'll give you a little bit extra credit for doing it. But so it seems like a lot of times the grade book is measured about for how much the students are willing to work towards this, being a student, that how hard they're willing to work to complete the assignment. So it seems like a lot of times that when we look at the grade book, that we kind of see that there was a few things. Well, the person decided to go to the game instead of coming to class, or something like that, or if it was they went to the concert instead of going to school. It's they went to the concert instead of coming to class just to take the final or something like that. So anybody say, it seems like nowadays we may think that sports are more important maybe than maybe the final or something like that, or maybe if it's the any test or anything like that come up, it's that they went to the game instead or something like that, or if it's the concert. So it's knowing about, I'm that you went to the concert instead, you didn't bother to come to class just to get go take the test, being there for the test, or if it was anything else important, such as study hour or something like that, you weren't in the library. You weren't in the library to participate in the meeting or something like that. So, but just thinking about that's for anything that's on the grade book, is that for for anything that whenever class starts, it just seems that for the grade book pretty much keeps track of a lot of the situations to where that that if there was a missing test, or if there was a missing assignment or missing notes or something like that, a lot of times that the grade book would keep track of a lot of that stuff that's due, and what needs to be turned in, and then what was graded, that type of stuff. So some students that may say that that after they read it and then that they see on there something wasn't turned in, or something wasn't completed right, or they didn't get the score that they expected, that type of stuff. So it just seems like that either way, even if you work hard or you don't, maybe you could have done a little bit better, whichever the situation is, and it seems like that the grade was just maybe less than expected. Is that you were expecting a little bit higher grade, and for like if it's gonna be if anybody were to wonder that like any young kids, or like you say that on their grade report that they were told that that they gotten an 87, or that they gotten a 72%, 72.41. So what grade would that be? And like well, usually that's about a C minus. So if anybody were to wonder that, I remember when I was in the 7th grade, a lot of times that the teacher would tell you about the grade, and that you got a 75 or you got a 74, and like, well, is that an A or a B? And then if I can remember right, the teacher was able to tell you by working out with the calculator. But let's just say that if we were to be working, say, with the taxes, and I'm sure that most of us here, like if we were to be buying books or something like that, maybe from the book fair, maybe from from the e-store or something like that, if we could actually tell, like they tell you about the tax rates, and if it's going to be for tax A or B or something like that, for how much more would you have to pay for if you were charged a certain tax, like for the state tax, or maybe for the county tax or something like that. So it's like, that they usually charge you about 7.89 or so percent. So more likely they say that, on average that would be about, for the books, sometimes between $4 and $5, between 4 and 5, 75 is 573 or something like that extra, just for taxes. So if I guess it all depends on between the sales price and then the regular price, and as well as the taxes go. So in a lot of ways it just seems like that buying any candy or something like that, or if it's going to be maybe buying any writing pencils or something like that, it's like everybody say that you really, unless if you were to go somewhere where they take off the tax due to a holiday or something like that, that they say everybody pays taxes. But on the other hand, the way I think about it, though, is like with the Gradebook, though, is that knowing for the most time, it's like for Gradebook Plus, is that you have right here, and it wrote down, it's like for comments, and as well as it's like for science, and then with English, and as well as communication. So in a lot of ways, it's like that we may think that that take about maybe 15 minutes just to study it, and like think about what's the best ways to get the students' attention as well as the teacher's attention, to where like anything that's said on the Gradebook, it's like, well, you broke the rules, you weren't here in class. Well, I was there in class. I was a little bit late, but now I'm like, well, I mean, that's just a thing now. I'm sure most students would likely say that if you're going to be a little bit late, then I'm like, maybe 10 or 20 minutes late, maybe once or twice. That I'm sure that most of the time, any students who may have problems maybe find a parking spot, or if it's anything such as something came up, and then or you got stuck in traffic, or which for some reason, that I'm sure that there are some other reasons to why it's like for late as well. But anyway, talking about it's like for the Gradebook professionals, knowing about the ways about that keeping, it's like for when you work to where and that's in the Gradebook, to where what makes us more professional is knowing about that for any of our work that shows improvement. It's like for best of all knowledge, is talking about say for the Gradebook professional color activity.